And it's now time for the big story. So, a group of 34 civil society organizations and individuals are urging Jamaican political leaders to prioritize environmental issues during the current election season. Despite promises of economic growth, environmental concerns like pollution, deforestation, and climate change remain neglected. The group is calling for concrete plans, strengthened law enforcement, and, in fact, transparent governance to address these issues. So, as I have been saying all morning long, we have to protect the environment, and this I consider to be a very, very important discussion to have at this time. I'd like to welcome my guests, Executive Director of the Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation, Ingrid Parchment, and she's with us. Good morning, Ms. Parchment. How are you doing today?
Morning, I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for joining us. We also have with us the CEO of the Jamaica Environment Trust, the JET, Dr. Theresa Rodriguez-Moodie. Good morning, Dr. Moodie. How are you doing yourself?
Hi, good morning. I'm doing great.
All right, thank you as well for joining me. I want to start with Ms. Parchment. Let me ask you, what are some of the specific environmental issues that you think are most pressing for Jamaican communities at this time, and how can they be addressed?
There are so many issues, but one of the things that immediately comes to my mind is looking at the impacts of climate change, but also how do we plan and how do we help communities to be more resilient? Certainly, Hurricane Beryl would have shown you communities that were newly impacted, if you will, but other communities that have been time and time again impacted by hurricane damage and all of the other impacts of climate change, and they barely recover from one before the next. So what are we doing to help them to become more resilient? Mm-hmm. Fires are a big thing. I mean, I'm driving all across South St. Catherine, South Clarendon. There have been fires all over the place for any number of reasons. There are fires. There are also sanctioned developments which are creating air pollution and water pollution. What are we doing about that? I think people in communities are complaining. People are cutting down mangroves. People are fishing using seine net, which pulls all of the seagrass and everything from out of the water. People are building houses in areas where they should not be building. The way that development is something that we appreciate and understand. But are we doing that in a way that is thinking about what it is that is impacting us now and the next 50 years? We need to be looking at changing the way that we do things and planning together, civil society, community persons, government, and private sector, because it is the private sector that is doing the development activities, even if they get, with the permission from government to build here and there. Mm-hmm. So we need to ensure that their activities are done in a way that considers the environment first. Mm-hmm. And don't only think about how we can fix something if it goes wrong, but what we need to put in place so that that thing almost does not happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we need a wide a participation from right across the society. Now, Dr. Moodie, let me ask you now, why do you believe it's important for political leaders to prioritize the environment in their election campaign?
Well, if we don't talk about it at this point, if we don't make it a central part of the discussion, then we'll continue to be reactive. And that's exactly what we have. Let's think about it. Anytime you hear about an environmental issue, it's because of pollution event. It's because of, some kind of incident that has taken place. And then all of a sudden, we're talking about, we need to fix this, we need to fix that. No, we need to make it the central part of the conversations, because essentially you cannot be talking about have sustained development. You cannot be talking about having strong economies without having healthy environments. So let's look at our tourism industry, for example. Everything is connected. Everything, agriculture, it's all connected to nature. And if you destroy the environment or exploit the environment in such a way that it can no longer support the very foundation of your economy, then we're only setting ourselves up for a disaster not in the far future, but really in the near future, because at this point, we're in the midst of this climate crisis. Ingrid spoke about it. The fact is that we don't have the luxury of doing these incremental changes or addressing these things in an incremental way. This is why it's so important. We felt that if it is recognized and it is central to the discussions about the economy, about the future, as each party gets on their stage each night or each day and they talk about all the grand plans, let's include the environment as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So as it is then at this time, Ms. Parchment, is it that you're not hearing anything at all coming from the political leaders, or is it that you're hoping and wishing to hear more?
I think I want it to be central. I want it to be the conversation that we're all having. And we want it to be that conversation where, as Theresa said, when they're on the stage, I'm not hearing environment. I'm really hearing about, houses or crime and, what it is that they're going to do about that. But if they're not dealing with the environment, and I will also say putting money behind doing the actions, because we put laws in place and we don't enforce them properly. We don't fund a proper enforcement team to do that. We don't fund the persons who are helping to protect it. So if you create protected areas within the space, they are not properly funded. So all of those things. So that needs to happen. But it needs to be in a way that is thinking about where we live. I think Theresa also mentioned it. We're an island state. Mm-hmm. So our situation is different from in a large country. But if we want this to be the place of choice to live, work, and do business for the next 50 years, we have to protect, conserve, plan sustainably together as how it is that we're going to be moving forward. So that is what I want to hear persons talking about. Mm-hmm. And not just a dash here, or I've created 3 protected areas over there. And so, no, It needs to be more than that. And if you are creating protected areas, then you need to put the funding behind it, where you're putting laws in place. I'm repeating this. You need to put the enforcement, and enforcement needs to have teeth and money so that it can be continuous. Mm-hmm. And actually, community people are asking for this. Some of the people complain to me. They see somebody with a crocodile. I get a call. We go and move that crocodile somewhere else. They see people with short legs. We get a call. You see persons cutting down mangroves. We get a call. A fire starts. We get a call. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we get a call, but we have to be properly funded to be able to give that support that is needed. And so this is what we're asking the politicians. Mm-hmm. Make this central, because we feel that if the environment is properly protected, conserved, where there's wise use, where we talk about sustainable development in a real way, then we can have a more healthy environment. But we'll also have healthy people. We will also have a better economy, because, sometimes I see persons coming with development ideas and they're putting it in a place where I'm saying, hey, we had 15-foot high waves in the area that you're planning to put your development. That does not make any sense.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right. I'm really happy that I'm having this discussion with both of you this morning. Dr. Moodie, how, as a group, are you ensuring that the society is fully aware of these environmental issues and also can join in expressing their concerns, as I'm sure that you want this whole matter of the environment to be fully integrated in the country's development strategy? What is your strategy to get the information out?
Well, I think for each of us, and you'll note that not all of the civil society groups, for example, are environmental. Like, environment is not necessarily core to what they do, but if you understand, this is so important as a almost like as a foundation kind of conversation, and so they felt it important to join in and join in the call. So there are different organizations that are working on educating, on getting people to voice their concerns, whether it is you put it on social media. But we're also, what we'd like to see happen, I know it was mentioned last night, but what we'd like to see happen is some kind of public conversation, some kind of public debate, which are either with our ministers of environment and our shadow minister or leaders, where the environment is actually the front and center of the conversation, where it is this is not just one question that is being asked, because there's no way you can address the issues that are facing Jamaica with one question in the middle of a debate, for example. So I think it would be useful that we hear from each political party in terms of what are their plans. And, it is very important that we move away from because we tend to hear a lot of this. This is what my party did, or this is what we did last year. We are this type of party. No. We don't want that conversation. What we're trying to understand is, what are your plans? How are you going to be including the environment in all of those grand plans? How are you making that central to how we develop, so that we're not compromising the next generations to come? Mm-hmm. So it would be great, and I think we'll continue to call for this. Maybe we can see if we can organize it. But having this kind of public debate, some kind of town hall, I think would be very useful, and we'd love to somehow get that up and running before we have elections. Okay.
So you might have to make the first move on that, but I can see a town hall being something that should be achievable, as we don't even know the date for the election yet, so there's still some time. So, if that is happening, please let us know so we can help you to publicize it. Let me go back to Theresa and ask, what about the private sector? Are you getting a buy-in from the private sector sufficiently?
Well, I don't know. And you said buy-in. I think that there are some private sector companies that understand that they cannot do as they please. I do understand that in business, it tends to be about the profit, the margin. And a lot of times we have heard where people are concerned that we need to put all of these things in place, then it really erodes their profit. But the reality is that this is why this whole change of thinking is also so important. So yes, there are some private sector that understand it, but we want to move away from things like, corporate social responsibility. We want to see where companies are really making environment the center, and don't mean like, we're going paperless. No. We're looking at things like all aspects of our business line, for example. How are we impacting the environment, and try to really make a change? So I think that it's time for more urgent and significant changes, even in the private sector. And private sector also need to be a part of the call for environment to be central in the conversation as we go forward with development of our country.
Okay. Ingrid, I want to give you the last word this morning, and I want you to speak to the average Jamaican out there in the community, at the community level, and tell them how they need to help to protect the environment as we go forward.
I think there are simple individual things that people can do. It could be that you turn off your water, talk to your children talk to your parents, get the information and get it out there. And when you see something happening, say something negative happening, say something, and try and do positive actions. I appreciate that sometimes you are not in a place to do as much as you would like, but it is the little things on your path that are going to come together. When I say one cocoa full basket, that is what they need to start doing. But they also need to be talking to their councillors, talking to their members of parliament, talking to their teachers, talking to their community citizen association membership, talking to their officials association or cooperative. You have to talk it up. You have to say, this is my community. I want to be living here, and I want my children to live here, and I want to have clean water resources. I want to be able to have access to a clean beach. I want not to be flooded out every time rain falls, and that is because you are allowing the private sector to bring in these whole heap of plastic bottles that are clogging up our drains and eventually, cause it related to some of the flooding, or how roads are being built, or how houses are being built. We have to take responsibility, but we also have to call out other people when they're not doing the right thing and not be afraid to do that. Of course, don't put yourself in danger. Mm-hmm. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, and then when developments are taking place, community groups can become, you can be the ones who are seeing that they're doing the thing properly. Mm-hmm. When the road is being built, if there's supposed to be a drain, whatever, if that's not happening, reach out to whichever entity is responsible for putting that road in or that development is ahead. We want to be persons who are monitoring the activity, and we will report to you on a regular basis, and that is part of the process, so that persons are aware and that they want to be a part of the process. We're not trying to force people to do things. We want people to understand that this is the best way for them as individuals and for us as a country.
Well said. I want to thank you both ladies for being my guests this morning. Executive Director, Caribbean Coastal Area Management Foundation, Ingrid Parchment. Thank you very much, Ingrid.
Thank you, Richie, for having me.
Wonderful. And, of course, the CEO of the Jamaica Environment Trust, Dr. Theresa Rodriguez-Moodie. Thank you so much as well, Mrs. Moodie. Have yourselves a wonderful day.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
All